my personal favorite. I love potatoes. I could live on potatoes, I think. But these are things that are good in moderation. You don't want too much of these because it adds calories to your diet that you probably don't need. Like I said, your body doesn't actually need very much every day to operate. You only need about 2,000 calories a day to operate if you're a normal human being. But these things are very abundant, they're very cheap, and so people use them a lot. And then these are the sugars, the processed sugars, raw sugar, soda, cookies, cereal, juice, treats. This is kind of sad because this is the kind of thing that people really like and they gravitate towards, but this is very, very unhealthy for people. So anyway, so you need a balance of carbohydrates, a lot, as much fiber as you possibly could get. You can't overdose on fiber. Fiber is like fantastic. Fiber is the best. Starches, you need a little bit of this because these are slow burning carbohydrates that your body needs. They'll provide energy over the day and make sure that you don't have an up and down cycle in your body's operating. And then sugars are things that you should avoid, or you can have a little bit, you can have a little taste of it, for taste. But certainly, eating a whole cake or something like that, or a bag of cookies is really a bad idea. So they found that changes in your body composition. So obtaining a healthy body composition is entirely possible if you do a few things. And that is paying attention to sugar, alcohol, and a little bit of alcohol, like in the form of red wine or something like that, is actually healthy, but very small amount on a daily basis. You can't be having a lot of that because those are calories too. That's actually a carbohydrate, and that will actually burn in your body and create fat in your body. And then also reducing fat in your diet. Now there's a bunch of different types of fat. We could go into that, but that's not really part of this presentation. I'd be happy to do another presentation because that's a whole nother game, is picking what are the healthiest fats for you to eat. But remember that fats have about 9 calories per gram, which is very, very high. So just a small amount of fat in your diet contributes a lot of calories, which, like I said, you don't need a lot to keep you alive. So, you should cut out the amount of fat in your diet. So excessive sugar, in addition to providing you with things that are unnatural, so excessive sugar throws off your metabolism. It causes, high spikes in your glucose levels and then crashes in your glucose levels, which are just completely unnatural. Think about it, 100 years, well, I don't know 100, but 200 years ago, within recent memory, humans didn't have access to donuts and candy and soft drinks that are loaded with sugar. And so our bodies aren't used to processing these things. In a small amount, we can tolerate a lot. Humans are very adaptable, so we can tolerate small amounts. But the thing is that the quantities that are available in the commercial markets right now, it's way too much. For most people, it's just way too much. And they can't process that much sugar, and it throws their body into imbalance. Plus, also, if you're eating donuts and cake and burgers and bread and stuff like that, it's displacing things that are healthy in your diet, like vegetables and fruit, berries, all these things that are very healthy that you should be eating. If you grab a donut and eat that instead of eating some fruit and vegetables, I mean, you're causing double damage to your body because you're not getting the nutrients from the fruits and vegetables, and you're also overloading yourself with calories. So and I know this is hard, guys. I know this is very, very hard. I've had to go through this myself. I was over on this end of the spectrum too, where I was eating unhealthy things because it was convenient. I was in a time rush. I would just grab whatever I could. And now I've kind of slowed down in my life to the point where I can take a little bit of time and count the calories I eat and make sure I'm eating healthy food on a daily basis. Okay, nutrition labels. This is an American nutrition label, and these things are always changing. So, 20 years ago, these didn't even exist. And now they've kind of evolved to the point where this is kind of a dashboard for people that are looking for the nutrient content in the food that they're about to eat. So this particular one has both serving information, calories. You can look at the major nutrients that are in there. You can see that there's some fiber, 4 grams of fiber. That's pretty good. And then you can see that there's a little bit of nutrients in there, calcium, potassium, and a little bit of iron. So that's good. In general, this food would be, in my opinion, it would be too high calories for the nutrients that you're getting out of it. Although it does have 15 grams of protein. I don't know what this particular product is, but you kind of have to balance this out and realize that you need to get about 45 to 50 grams of protein. You don't want to exceed 2,000 calories per day unless you're an athlete. You know, if you're an Olympic athlete and you're burning 5,000 calories a day, then by all means, make sure you get at least 5,000 calories a day. But for most of us out there, we are not Olympic athletes. We're people that work. We're not completely sedentary, but we need about 2,000 calories a day for the average individual on a daily basis. Another thing about labels is, well, at least in the United States, they break out sugars into total sugars because there could be some natural sugars in there. If it's a fruit-based product, it could have some natural sugars in there. And those natural sugars aren't necessarily unhealthy, but then the added sugars are the things that you really need to focus on, because those are things that they've added to sweeten up the food that can make it very unhealthy. So in this particular case where I see it's 15 grams of total sugars, that doesn't really turn me off so much. But when I see that they've added half of that as added sugars, that makes me wary of this product. I'm not sure that I'd have to look further into it, but it would definitely raise my alertness that they have to make it so sweet. So when you know how to read the nutrition labels, it kind of helps you make healthy food choices. And also, this is really cool. Like they said in the introduction, I've got 3 children. I've got 3 boys. 2 of them are in college, and 1 of them is still in high school. And they've become pretty health oriented. And one of the things that's really driven their behavior is they've learned how to read nutrition labels. So they know how to look at food and kind of dissect it and see whether that food is healthy or if it's unhealthy, and then, you know, decide whether that should be part of their diet. Okay, don't be fooled by the different names of sugars. There's a lot of different names for sugars, depending on the country that you're in. But you've just got to look at added sugars, you know, or things. The Canadian labels have a different thing on there. But just because they call it something, you know, like coconut sugar or something like that, doesn't mean it's not sugar. So the ingredient list can kind of disguise you, but the nutrition label can help sort things out. Sugar-free, there's sugar-free foods that are out there. And if you see something that's sugar-free, it means that it has less than 0.5 gram of sugar per serving. So that's good, you know, because it's sugar that throws off your metabolism. But don't think that things that are sugar-free don't have any calories to them. You have to look a little further and look at the calories section as well, because they could be loaded with carbohydrate, they could be loaded with fat, and they can still say that they're sugar-free. Things like honey and maple syrup, you know, single ingredient products, they have special labeling for these particular type of products, where they call out the line for total sugars. And again, things like honey's natural, but the thing is that, think about it, during our evolution, you didn't run into honey very often. And so it was something that you would use sparsely. You know, the same is true for any kind of processed sugar. Like, you know, when we were hunter-gatherers back a few thousand years ago, we didn't run into honey every single day. We certainly didn't have, you know, 10-pound jars of honey in our pantry. So you've got to just remember that and just start using these things like the primitive people would have used them, very sparingly in your diet. So reduce the added sugar in your diet. This is very important. When you look at that, the added sugar on nutrition labels is a key. Make sure that you're making wise choices. say no to donuts. Like, honestly, I don't think I've eaten a donut in probably the last 5 or 6 years. You know, I don't see a need for it. They're just particularly not appetizing to me right now. Honestly, my particular thing is that anything that's over 15 grams of sugar per serving is something that I will generally shy away from, or I'll cut that serving size in half, because 15 grams of sugar per serving is what triggers your insulin response in your body, which is the negative response. And so if I can keep a serving of food, my dinner, my breakfast, everything like that, under 15 grams per serving, then I feel very good about that, and I can continue that. The whole thing is that we want to live a long lifetime, and sugar is something that really can cut your life short. You can end up with all sorts of problems from eating too much sugar in your diet. And the problem is it's not illegal, it's out there. There's so much of this stuff. So just make sure that you make healthy choices going into the future.
Dr. Robson, that was a lot of information, and we're very appreciative of you kind of giving that information. So one of the things I want to follow up on is that you said there was a small amount of sugar, and I think you alluded it to in that last part. But can you talk a little bit further about that? Like, so you said there's 15 grams of sugar per meal, or is that just 15 grams of sugar like all day? Is a small amount that you should keep it under?
Yeah, that's a good point, Tim. So what I'm talking about is, see, I don't eat 3 meals a day. I eat 5 small meals a day. Okay, so that's another evolution that I've done over the years, is rather than eating large meals, I just eat small meals during the day. And whenever I choose one of those small meals, I try to make it under 15 grams of carbohydrate or of sugar in any of those meals, because I know for a fact, that 15 grams will trigger that insulin response. And the insulin response causes things like postprandial oxidative stress in your body, things like that, which are very bad for your body. So if you can keep it below 15 grams per little meal that you have during the day and spread out your meals during the day, honestly, I think people could live to 150 years old. I really do.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm cutting out the donuts. So say no to donuts. I think that's the way that I got away from you. And so can we talk a little bit more about like carbs then? Because, somebody always says, you look at the label and there's carbs, and I think there's a carb kind of like fear mongering in a way. So when you say you can't overdose on fiber, eat as much fiber as you can, I think that's great. But when you're talking about carbs, like the starches, like the rice, the bread, the potatoes, how much is too much, and does it vary between people?
Okay, that's a great question, Tim. So yes, it does vary between people. So there's been studies out there. I've read a lot of studies recently that show that some people react very strongly to rice or potatoes, and other people don't. So it's really you can kind of tell. You kind of have to experiment with yourself. But the thing is that, like I was saying, okay, sugars are definitely bad. So sugars they're like gasoline in your body. They burn too fast. So little bits of it are okay, but anything more than 15 grams per serving is way too much. The other carbohydrates you kind of have to experiment with. Like for potatoes, my body, because I came from an Irish heritage, so potatoes are something natural, that's cultural, like that's what we grew up on. And then, there's certain cultures that grew up on wheat, there's certain cultures that grew up on rice. My wife is Asian, and so she grew up on rice, and it reacts well with her. I can have a little bit of rice, but I can't have too much white rice. Otherwise, it does not react really well with me. So you've got to kind of go back to your heritage a little bit and kind of, it's really tough. I could do a whole hour on this, but carbohydrates are not bad. And then particularly things that are high fiber, like beans, legumes, nuts, things like that are high fiber, as much as you can get of those. Like you should fill out most of your calories of the day with those kind of foods if you possibly can. And the Mediterranean diet, which has been proven to be like so successful, a lot of it is based on that, a lot of nuts, a lot of fruits, pine nuts, oils, things like that. But again, you have to also look back at the heritage too. What's your heritage? What's your genetic background?
And my last question for you, because I want to respect people's time, is we talk, there's a lot of information or misinformation about fats and saturated fats. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about, are fats good for you? Are there, how much is too much? What types of fats? So anything that you kind of can tell people so that it's a little bit more helpful when they look at the labels.
Yeah, okay. So this is, again, I could go an hour on this, but we'll just do it in a couple minutes. So one thing that you definitely want to stay away from is what's called trans fats. And trans fats are hydrogenated oils. They were used a lot back in the last century. Still, some companies carry them over because they're cheap and they're shelf stable and things like that. If you see trans fats on anything, do not eat it. Do not throw that thing in the garbage can. Do not eat anything with trans fats in it. The things about saturated fat is that there's different genetic tolerances for that. So like in my heritage, there's a lot of dairy, there's a lot of eggs, things like that. So I have a high tolerance for saturated fat. My wife does not. So for her, it would be more nuts, nut oils, and medium chain Okay, so one of the magic fats that's out there right now is what's called MCT oil, medium chain triglyceride, and it's from coconut. It's part of the fraction of coconut oil. Coconut oil by itself is not that healthy, but there's a fraction of it, and they can fractionate it you just using temperature. But if you could get MCTs into your diet, that's the ideal fat for your body because it's super easy for your body to process. And again, whatever fat you use, don't use too much because you really don't need that many calories. But MCTs are great. And then saturated fat, probably a little less of that, polyunsaturated a little bit more.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day, whatever time it may be for you, to talk about intuitive eating. This is something that I am very passionate about because this is what I practice in my own life. So let's jump right into it. So, what exactly is intuitive eating? Intuitive eating, simply put, is eating when you are hungry and stopping when you are full. It focuses on listening to your body's hunger cues instead of following a prescribed plan for when to eat. It also emphasizes the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. Intuitive eating focuses on enjoying food instead of labeling foods as either good or bad. This may sound opposite of what we hear from diet experts. Research shows that you are less likely to crave a forbidden food, and I say that in parentheses, forbidden food, if you simply allow yourself to eat it without judgment. It's perfectly fine to enjoy an occasional treat. Now, I do have one slight disclaimer there. This may not apply to persons who are following a prescribed diet from their healthcare practitioner for health reasons. So if this is you, please follow your prescribed diet. Intuitive eating also encourages body positivity by recognizing just how beautiful and capable your body is right now, instead of feeling critical about it. Now, we were all born intuitive eaters. Think about babies. Babies cry when they're hungry, and then when they're full, they turn their heads away to let you know. Picture a toddler. They're intuitive eating pros. They refuse to eat their lunch, and then an hour later, they're complaining that they're hungry. Or they ask for more food, they take one bite, and then they don't finish the rest. Does this sound familiar? This behavior can be very frustrating to parents. I have 5 children of my own, and I recall feeling frustrated many, many times. However, when you examine this behavior in toddlers, you'll see that it's intuitive eating in action. So in order for us adults to return to intuitive eating, we need to get back in touch with that toddler inside each of us. So to summarize, there are many benefits to intuitive eating. Intuitive eating fosters a healthy, positive relationship with food. Intuitive eating promotes a positive body image. Intuitive eating encourages mindful eating. When researchers looked at data from over 24 cross-sectional studies that involved over 10,000 adults of all ages, all genders, all cultures, all ethnicities, they found that intuitive eating was associated with a more positive body image, better emotional function, and less disordered eating and dieting practices. So how do we practice intuitive eating? Well, eating intuitively relies on listening to your body's hunger and satiety cues. So let's get a little sciencey here and review what's happening inside of our bodies. So when our stomachs are empty, they produce the hunger hormone ghrelin. Ghrelin sends a signal to the brain through the vagus nerve, telling you that you are hungry. Now, this is your gut-brain axis in action. Your stomach may also be rumbling, and you also may be feeling a little lightheaded or irritable or tired. These hunger signals cause you to go seek out food. But it's important not to ignore these physical hunger signals too long, because you may become hangry. And then you might be tempted to wolf down whatever food is handy instead of eating something that you really want. Now, as you eat, your stomach fills and it stretches. It stops making as much ghrelin. That stretch signal tells your brain that you are full. And then when the food enters your small intestine from your stomach, it produces another stretch signal. However, this doesn't happen right away. It can take 20 minutes or more for your brain to realize you are full and it's time to stop eating. Eating too quickly doesn't allow this feedback loop sufficient time to work, making it easy to overeat without even realizing it. So this is where eating mindfully comes into play. Now picture the last time you enjoyed a leisurely, quiet meal without interruption. If this sounds too good to be true, you're not alone. Eating on the run has become a normal part of modern day life. Busy, busy, busy. We eat in our cars, on our way to the next meeting, guilty, or while we are working on our computers, also sometimes guilty. Have you ever eaten mindlessly as you've tried to catch up on Instagram, Facebook, all those text messages? How about while binge watching your favorite TV show, especially in these times? Distracted eating doesn't allow you to fully enjoy your food. So you may not feel satisfied, and you may keep on eating in an attempt to gain satisfaction. Mindful eating is the practice of fully focusing on your food as you eat. So try sitting down at a clutter-free table. Put away those technology devices. Turn off that TV. Take a few minutes to arrange your food pleasantly. Then engage all your senses. Notice how your food looks. What does it smell? How does it taste? Notice how it even feels as you're chewing it and how it sounds. Each bite you take, without feeling any guilt, chew slowly and pace yourself.
Try to make your meal last at least 20 minutes so your body has time to produce those fullness signals. Before you help yourself to seconds or even dessert, ask yourself, am I really still hungry? Lastly, if you are experiencing emotional hunger, then honor your feelings without food by meditating, journaling, taking a walk, or calling a friend. Emotional hunger is usually a sudden craving for a comforting food in response to your feelings, such as stress or sadness. Here are two examples of individuals that illustrate the difference between simply enjoying a treat and responding to emotional hunger. I had a friend, and she had finished her third marathon in a very short time period. And she wanted to enjoy a treat. And she had been spending some time of thinking about what that treat was going to be. And it was a slice of her favorite cheesecake from her favorite restaurant. So when she finished that third marathon, she went to that restaurant, she bought that piece of cheesecake, and then she enjoyed every single bite. That's somebody who is enjoying an occasional treat. Now contrast that with this other example. I have a friend, and she lives alone and doesn't have a partner, and it was her birthday. And her grown children, they forgot to call her and wish her a happy birthday. And she was feeling really sad. So she went to the store and she bought her favorite cake and she took it home. And then she ate almost the entire cake. And she came and talked to me and she felt really bad about eating the cake. And I said, well, what kind of cake was it? And she said, oh, it was my favorite cake. It was a German chocolate cake. I said, wow, did you enjoy it at least? And she said, no, I don't even remember what it tasted like. And I don't think it tasted very good. And it didn't make me feel very happy. That is an example of emotional hunger. So intuitive eating, to sum it up, is instinctive. We know best what our bodies need, but we may have just lost touch with the cues because we just haven't been listening to them. So this is the time to channel your inner toddler and trust your own body. Thank you for joining me tonight in this webinar on intuitive eating. This has been a real privilege to speak to you about this subject. And this webinar series has just been an amazing series. I watched all 3 presentations, and it's an absolute honor to wrap this series up with this presentation on intuitive eating. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you.
May I ask you some questions? I'm going to pick, okay, the first one. So it says, everything is fast right now and life needs, to be 5G and they're supercharged or express, right? We line up for coffee even. So how can intuitive eating help us with weight management? We sit at home a lot right now.
That is so true. Well, intuitive eating can help with weight management by preventing overeating, as we talked about earlier. So when we take the time to eat more slowly and allow our bodies to produce that signal that says that we're finished eating, then that prevents us from overeating. And also when we pay attention to what we're eating and we get satisfaction from what we're eating, that also prevents us from overeating. So intuitive eating is a really great way to help manage weight.
I will definitely try it. Chew it slowly and enjoy each bite. So there's another question. It's here. It says, if we eat like toddlers and listen to our bodies, does it mean to eat any food at any time when we feel hungry? Or how can we know when is our real hunger point?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a two-part question. So when we eat like a toddler, does that mean we can eat anything we want when we're feeling hungry? Oh, how I wish that were the case. However, intuitive eating is not really a license to eat whatever you want. We all know that eating whole foods instead of processed foods is better for us. And we should focus on eating whole foods, foods that are high in protein, healthy fats, and fiber, because those are the foods that will fill us up and keep us feeling fuller longer. So we should be focusing on whole foods. That said, again, I go back to it's okay to have an occasional treat. And then I believe the second part of that question was, how do I know when I've reached my physical hunger point? Well, now, physical hunger comes on more gradually. You may notice, oh, I think I'm feeling a little bit hungry. And then it gets stronger and stronger. And physical hunger, it doesn't make you crave a comfort food. It makes you think about eating. I want to eat something healthy so that I can feel full. And as we talked about in the presentation, it is important not to ignore those hunger signals too long, because then you're so hungry that you might just grab something that's handy or walk to the vending machine instead of eating something that maybe you had prepared for lunch and brought to work with you. So it's really important to honor that hunger and eat when you are feeling hungry. Hope that answers your question well.
Yes, I'm sure it is. I will pass this information to my husband and check our shopping list, make it more whole food, right? So it's a life practice, but day by day, I'm sure we're all improving our health habits. And there is another question. Yes, Sanavi does that too with a lot of whole food. Thank you. I love it, Nikki.
Yes, and might I add, it's really hard to overeat when you're eating good, nutritious whole foods.
It keeps longer, full satisfaction, right? So, and there's another question. Probably this is our today's webinar's last question. So, Shirley, it's a long question. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. So, as you mentioned, it takes about 20 minutes or longer even for our brain to realize, oh, we are full. And so eating slowly can allow this feedback to loop enough time to work. So whenever the occasion, like we take out our more time to eat more at like a family gatherings, like Chinese New Year or birthday or potluck sometimes. Like for me, I like to eat hot pot. We do take longer time to enjoy all the foods, and especially the time with friends and families. This is the most important part for us. But how can we, enjoy the meal time together, but use the intuitive eating here, so not overeating during the hot pot time or gathering time?
Well, I really love that you're describing having dinner with your family. It's everybody's circumstances are different, but intuitive eating is a little easier to practice when you actually eat with someone else, because you're automatically slowing down, you're having a conversation, you're enjoying each other's company as well as the food that you're eating. So while you're enjoying each other's company, do take some time to listen to your own body. And is it telling you that you're full? And maybe that's just taking forkfuls of food, more slowly, like chewing them slowly, putting your fork down, picking it up, having another forkful, or when you're finished eating, like I know a hot pot can go on and on and on. I love hot pot. When you do realize, hey, I'm full, maybe you can just take your hot pot fork and just put it down and then just continue enjoying spending time with those that you're dining with.
Yeah, awesome. So we will prepare that, especially during the cold winter time. But thank you so much, Shelley, for your knowledge